Hi guys, welcome to yet another lecture on your JSON class. Now in this lecture we are going to go over the parsing of a JSON object, or how to parse a JSON object so that you can get your object and you can use it in your framework. So in this scenario we will explain it in terms of JavaScript, but any JSON object that is returned from a server can easily be converted into an object and then used in the respective framework or language that you are using. So let's get started and see what we have in store. So a common use of JSON is to exchange data to and from a web server, which is very obvious, and that's the whole purpose of JSON. Now, when receiving data from a web server, the data is always a string. When we parse the data with JSON.parse, yes, I repeat, JSON.parse. So this is the method that we are going to be using when we parse the data using, or basically a string. So whenever you have a JSON.parse, string, here is your JSON object that you will pass. And when you do that, what you will get is you will get a JavaScript object in return. So you will have something like my object is equal to something. So the moment you pass in a JSON or a string out here, which is a valid JSON, you can actually get it to an object. Yes, so let's go ahead and see some examples. So let's create a simple JSON object. So we will create a string. So what we will say is JSON object is equals to, let's make it a string so that we know that this is a string, and let's say we have name John, age 25, city New York. Okay, so now let's run this, and when we get the my object, console.log my object, so you should get the my object in the console. Let's run it with JS, go to console. You get an error because JSON at position 0, unexpected token J. Oh, because I haven't passed the JSON object, my bad. And it should be JSON. Okay, JSON. Alright, let's clear it. Let's run it, and you get your object as an output. So you can very well see what you can expect. Now there is a problem, right? You will also get an error when your JSON is incorrect. Let's say instead I forget to give the quotes to age. Let's run this, and you should see there is an error, and it will tell you at position 17. So if you say line 17, it will tell you that age is a problem, but it's not so clear, because when you're expecting data from server, which means this data, it'll be a problem. So there is something called as a JSON lint. Just like there is a JS lint where you can validate your JavaScript, or purify your JavaScript, there's something called as JSON lint where you can just paste your JSON file and you can validate it, and it will give you an error saying John, age 25, city something, string got undefined. So it was expecting a string, but it got undefined. So now let's change this to age in quotes, and let's validate it, and you'll see the JSON is valid, and it'll also tell you how it does, what are the conditions, what are the common errors, common issues, how you can fix them. So anytime you have a JSON file or JSON data that you need to validate, you can go to jasonlint.com. Again, this will be available in your resources section, and you can validate your JSON file. Now that being said, let's quickly add the quotes again. Now that was easy because this object came in from your string that you created. But what if this object comes in from a remote server? Yes, in that scenario we are going to see a very simple example on accessing your data using AJAX, or as we say, XML HTTP request. So if you go to W3 Schools and just search for just go here, let's say XML HTTP request, the first article that you should pretty much see is either your MDN or a Mozilla, and you will see a W3 School too. So let's just do W3 Schools, and you should see the first article out here, which is W3 Schools second. Actually, you click on this and you should be able to go on to this article. Now here you can see a very good example where you can actually send a request to a particular file name or a URL in this scenario, and you will get a data back. So let's go ahead and copy this, and let us go ahead and comment our JSON object, not the entire thing, just the variable JSON object, and let us paste it here for now. Okay, Let me move it here. Nothing will happen, nothing should run because the file name doesn't exist. You can either have a local file or you can actually give a URL. Now to fulfill that, what we will do is we will hop on to another very cool site which is called JSON placeholder. And in the JSON placeholder file, what we will see is you can see a sample request. You just run this and you will see a body and user ID, title and body coming up. So what you need to do is copy this URL. So the URL is very simple. You just copy this URL and do a /post/1. So let's go here. Let's paste this URL here. And of course, because that was the root URL, you need to make sure you're appending the posts one. Let's copy this. And you should be able to get something onto the screen. So you send this request and you update your document.demo. So whatever was this content out here in here, this will get updated. Let me comment my object also at this point, as well as the console, and you can see the data is already updated out here. So this is the JSON that got returned to us. Now there is also another cool thing that you can do is you can copy this URL. If it is returning a JSON file, you can just open your Chrome browser and paste it. You will see the JSON file out here. It's very simple. Now you close this and you copy this completely and go to your JSON lint to make sure that the JSON that you got from the response is valid or no. And again, it will lint it and it will say it's a valid JSON. So you can definitely go ahead and use it. Now you can see that this JSON has multiple things: user ID, title and body. To access any of these, either you can directly do a console log of my object by parsing. Let's actually do it inside. So let this be commented. So rather than doing a demo of inner HTML updating with the the response text, what we can do is copy this response text, create a variable my object is equals to JSON.parse, and then paste the same response. So now you have it in your object, and the way you can access it is you can just do object.user ID. I think that's what it was. So the answer is 1 because the value is 1. Let's say you want to do the title. So this plus, let's give a hyphen in between, plus let's give my object dot title. Okay, and you can see the user ID and the title got displayed. So that was easy, right? So all you have to do is parse the response text or the string, and then you will get your resultant JSON object, and then accessing that JSON object is very easy and similar to what we have seen in our previous classes. Now again, you can also basically access any of it. Like let's say for example, if you go to the same placeholders website, you can see there are posts you can create. So if you click on this, you will see 100 posts created. So this is nothing but an array. So you can actually loop through this content. So let me show it to you. So rather than actually, let's comment this out completely. And actually, let's copy this also. So I just copied everything, and rather than doing post 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the second option, which is posts. So let's just do a post. So this should give me 100 rows. And once I get this, I will continue to display the response text. So you can see it in the object 2. Inner HTML will be this. Let me just comment it out. Well, let's just delete this actually. So this is the response that you got, which is an array of objects that is received from your number of posts that you had in your JSON placeholder file. Now what you can do is you can actually iterate through this array, and it is very easy. So the way you will do it is you will first initialize your JSON object. So variable my object is equals to JSON.parse, and then pass in your response text, which is this one, http.response text. So your JSON object is created. Now you will loop through the JSON object because it's an array, and the way you will do it is I in my object, and then you will get the my object value. Now to display that onto your screen or the text, what you will do is you will have a variable, let's say text equals to nothing, and then update text plus equal to whatever value the text had. So you will update it with First is the ID as we had previously. So you will do a my object user ID, and let's just display this text onto the screen, and it should display you numbers 1 to 100. Because my object, you need to make sure you have the ith element. It's an array, and you should see 1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2 3 3 4 5 till 100 or 10 as we see. So if you see here also, it's all user ID 1 1 1 1 1 so many times. Now you can also do an ID rather than user ID, so you should get 1 to 100, let's say. So you can get 1 to 100. Now you can put it onto a new line very easily. So everything displays a little separated, so that should be good enough for you to get started. Once you have the ID, you can also display the title. So let's say I actually have to display it out here, so I will say hyphen plus and then another plus and then display the title. You can see 1 something, 2 something, 3 something. So again, it can go for as much as you want, but the point out here is that you can iterate through the my object using a for loop and access everything that you need and display it onto your screen. It is as simple as that. Now that was all about parsing in JSON. If you have any exceptions, how do you deal with it? Well, the first exception that you will always have is dates. Because JSON doesn't support date object, what you will have a problem with, let me comment this out so we can see another example. So this is commented. Now let's go on, and let's say if you have dates in your JSON object, for example, you have something called as variable person. Let's make it a JSON by putting it into a string. Just trying to create this. So let's say 1988. So now this is a birth date that I want to give for the person, and the way to access that is very, it's easy when it comes to JavaScript, because all you need to do is first get the object. So let's say my object is equal to, you will do a JSON.parse, because that's how you will parse any JSON file. You will parse the person, so you have your object person right now. So once you get the object person, let's say my object dot birth, because that's the key that we used, is equals to new date, and then again pass the same thing, which is my object dot birth. Let's do a console.log of my object dot birth. Let's go to the console, run it, and it says object date. And again, if you go here in the console, you should see the date printed out, which is 13th of December 1988. Again, that's how you can actually use parse function to receive the string and then convert it to a date object. Or you can use the second parameter of the JSON parse function called reviver. The reviver parameter is a function that checks each property before returning the value. So let me show you an example. So the way you can write a reviver, let's actually give this, a little space, so we don't need to do this. So rather than doing this, by explicitly assigning, you can pass a second parameter, which is nothing but a function that accepts the key, comma value, and then gives you a response or a return. Now what this will do is, this will actually give you a chance to update certain data. So let's say if you have the key is triple equal to birth. Okay, in that scenario, what you can do is you can go inside and you can do a return a new date, and then whatever is the value that you got, because the parameter you passed is value will be returned. So what this is doing is nothing, but it is the moment you're parsing, for every object that it parses, it will have a key value pair. Now for every key, it will check if it is equal to birth. If the key is equal to birth, it will return a new date of the value of that key. So in this scenario, the moment it sees birth, it sees this date of 1988, as the value, and then it will convert it to a date object. If not, you just return the normal value. So you do a return value. So this is the default that happens for any case. So the default reviver, if you actually assume it to be, it will be a function which takes in a key value pair and always returns the value as it is. So you can actually customize your key value pair out here, so you don't have to write it again and again. Now if you go ahead and clear this and run this, you should still see the data object, and in the console you will see the date. Let's clear the console, run it again. You should see the date out here. Okay, so that was easy. Now what if you want to parse functions? So first, functions are not allowed in JSON. If you need to include a function, you can write it as a string. You can convert it back into a function later. So let me show you an example. So for this, let's say we add an age factor. And rather than giving it a to be a function out here, you can write this function as a string itself in here. So you can do a quote and then you can say function, and you can do a return age is 25. Okay, so you do a return 25 and close it. So the way you can actually parse this function is very easy. So let's comment this out. We don't need this console log. Let's go down and let's quickly see how we can do that. So now you have your my object, which is out here, my object, and it's passed to the actual JSON object as a person. So now when you have my object, what you can do is my object dot age, because that's the age that you want it to be setted. You can write another function call which is eval. So this will just do an evaluation of the function that you have, and you can pass the parameters, which is a string, and then you can do a my object dot age, because now you're passing the function, the actual function. And again, you need to make sure that you close the bracket. And when you do this, let's do a console log of the same object after evaluation. So you can do my object dot age, and let's see what we have. Let's clear this, and it gives you a function of 25. Now if you want the value or the return value from that function, you need to make sure you call or invoke that function using the parentheses, and you should get the value of 25. So that's how you can actually pass a function as a string and evaluate it to becoming a function and use it. However, it is possible, but when you are trying to use a JSON object, you should avoid using functions, because the functions will lose their scope and you would have to use eval to convert them back into the function. Now there are the browsers that support JSON.parse is pretty much everything that you see currently, or the modern browsers. But to just give you a list of it, it is, let's say the first one is the Firefox. Anything that is a version 3.5 or above will be supporting JSON for you. Let's say IE, I don't know how many people use it these days, but IE 8 onwards, the JSON support is already there. Chrome, any level should be there. Opera, I think number 10, which is the version 10, and Safari version 4 onwards. So these are the browser versions that actually support parse. So JSON.parse will be supported in these browsers. If you're using any browser which is in lower configuration or lower version than this one, you probably will have some difficulty in executing the JSON.parse. And therefore, I will recommend that you make sure that you at least have these versions before you playing with it. So that was all from this lecture, and if you have any questions around JSON.parse, let me know in the Q&A section or in the comments below. All your resources will be available to you, just like in any other lecture, either in your resources section or in the comments below, and I will see you in the next class.